Today is March 28th, and while most hunters are preparing for the 2023 turkey season, I'm in the woods today making mock scrapes for the 2023 fall deer season. I feel like most people complicate the heck out of these mock scrapes, so I'm going to show you what I do for a mock scrape and how simple it is and how great this actually works. All I'm going to do is pick one tree with an overhanging branch within range of my hunting blind, and I'm going to take a cutting of grapevine that's about an inch in diameter, and I'm going to tie it to that tree branch. Couple things that are super important when doing this. The first thing is the ground beneath that grapevine has to be completely clear of logs and branches. So the deer will have access to that grapevine from all directions if possible. You don't want anything that's going to prevent that deer from walking right up to that grapevine. Also, ideally, you want an excellent view of that grapevine from multiple directions for the deer. When you select a piece of grapevine, select one that's longer than what you think you're going to need. And then once you have it hanging, cut it off so it's just about the same height as your belt line, maybe slightly lower. When a deer comes up to a scrape, they're focusing more on that hanging branch that you typically see on a natural scrape, and they're going to be rubbing around their nose and their eyes to saturate that branch with some of their gland. They're not necessarily focusing on the ground, but they do have to have access to the ground to be able to get to that branch and rub on it, and the same goes for your grapevine. So now that I have that grapevine hung, and it's at the right height and trimmed off, I'm just going to leave this site alone because the ground is already clear and I don't have to make any other changes to this. One thing that I do have to do is add a trail cam on a tree nearby so that it captures images of the deer using it, so that in the fall I can track the bucks, but so that I have proof that within the first 24 hours this vine is already being used by deer. So you can see over here, I added the trail cam to a nearby tree, and this is the view of that trail cam, and the grapevine is hanging down right in front of that blind, and the deer have an access from all directions to this grapevine when they approach it. It's super visible for the deer. This is super easy to do. No scent, no anything goes into this. And honestly, my hands were not even clean, so my scent from my hands got all over on that grapevine. I'm going to be adding one more of these mock scrapes out here in this open grassy field, because way off in the back, I'm going to be building a new blind this year, and I want that to be within range of this new blind. And right here is a great opportunity. I have to stretch up there a little ways to stretch out this branch to hang my twine. And I am using bale twine, not just some cheap twine from the store, so this is pretty strong stuff. Should get me through a couple years with this grapevine. And once I get that twine tied up there, I can add my piece of grapevine that I found out in the woods. This specific piece of grapevine that I'm using has a nice curve to it and an elbow right at the top to help hold the twine on after I tie my knot so it does not risk slipping off. And probably would be a little easier with a ladder right here, but it works out okay. I get that tied up there, and you can see it's literally just swinging from this tree. The only other thing I'm going to do here, since this is a more grassy area, I am going to grab a garden rake, and I'm going to rake some of that grass away from the ground. There's a whole bunch of dead grass here. There's actually a few small saplings growing up. I'll trim them off. And then prior to hanging this, I did trim a few small branches that stuck out from this tree that might get in the way of the deer walking up and rubbing on this. So the deer do have a nice open area. They have access from two sides really well. They cannot come from the left side through the brush, but they're going to really notice this just dangling here and bouncing off this branch. This is no different than the one that I just made out in the woods. The deer will still have great access. only thing I have to do different is scrape up the ground here, because that's going to really knock up the scent for the deer, and it's going to really help them notice this tonight. The only thing about it being late March is that I definitely won't see a rack on any of these deer. I fully expect that some of them were probably last year's bucks that I'll get on camera. I just won't know it. I'll probably see some little nubs popping out, and that'll be it. So now that I have the ground worked up pretty good, it's a nice noticeable clean patch, I'm going to go grab another trail cam that I'll be hanging up over this scrape, and then we can see what kind of video we get here. You can see off to the right of the screen just a little ways, there's that black trail cam hanging up off a little bit of a distance, but close enough that I'll still get plenty of quality shot if deer do approach this. Again, all you need is a grapevine hanging right about belt line height up off the ground, and to clear the ground a little bit for this. And here we are, the very same night that I hung these up. This is the mock scrape that I did over by the white blind. This is the very first one in the video, the very first night. And there's already several deer coming up and rubbing on this and leaving their gland scent behind. These deer will continue to do this now all summer long, right up into the fall, and every single buck that walks by during the mating season this fall will see this active scrape, and they will not be able to walk past it without approaching it and coming into that line of fire from the hunting blinds and the tree stands. Like I said, this is an excellent, super easy way to draw the buck's attention this fall off of you and onto these mock scrapes. So I really highly recommend this. Even if you're not going out hunting, this is something simple that you can do to just get some neat footage of deer in your yard or with trail cams out in your woods, so you can see what you have moving around in your woods during the day and at night. And now we're moving on to that second mock scrape, and exact same thing. Very first night that it's out in the woods. This is about 8 o'clock at night, and the deer are just going crazy. Watch what this one does. This one just gets right up on its hind legs. It is just loving this thing. You can't just make that kind of stuff up. The deer love these things. And again, they're getting their gland on it, so they're going to continue to do this until that mock scrape is knocked down. It's just a great resource. So I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to shut up and quit talking, and I'm just going to play out these trail cam videos that I have on this last mock scrape.